Hi, and welcome back to another capital raising breakdown. So basically today we're looking at an article from the Australian Financial Review. The headline is Salesforce backs Marketplacer as offshore ambitions take shape. Now, once again, it's by AFR reporter Yolanda Redrup. So as we break this down, let's go through a couple of things. Firstly, it's actually kicking off who the investor is. Now, of course, one of the things that investors are often looking for from a brand perspective is what other investors have invested into that company before they actually go into it. Now, in this case, the headline is leading with Salesforce, right? So from a journalist perspective, or from a headline perspective, they see Salesforce as being the key draw to attention for this actual communication. Now, whilst you may be thinking, well, I'm promoting my capital raise, how's this relevant to an article? It's really simple. This whole game is about attention grabbing. It's like, how can we get the attention of potential investors that may want to participate in our company? And you can see that the way that, from an AFR perspective, it is their belief, according to the headline, that leading with the word Salesforce is far more impactful for them than if they went with anything else. So that's a really important start, right? Now, okay, so fast-growing e-commerce tech company Marketplacer has extended the size of its recent $20 million funding round by $5 million to bring on Salesforce Ventures as an investor, right? So basically what they're saying is this is being positioned as an oversubscribed offer with Salesforce coming in. Now the next paragraph is really important, and this is where you start to get that brand identification from an investor perspective. The pre-IPO company, now one of the things we always talk about is one of the things investors are commonly looking for, especially right now, is the stage of the company. Is typically a pre-IPO company is of high interest for investors because there's that short-term uplift to IPO, and also typically at the moment when companies go to list, there's been a high growth, there's sometimes been a high increase in the share price once they've actually listed, right? So the pre-IPO company, which counts the likes of Myer, Petstock, and Metcash as customers, enables businesses to create their own marketplace, letting them sell goods without having to stock them, right? So this is really important. Now, what is Yolanda identifying straight off the bat? Blue chip customers. So we're looking at Marketplace. They are a B2B company. Literally in the first two paragraphs, they've highlighted that obviously Salesforce is backing them, right? So it's a brand name investor that's backing them. They've also highlighted that effectively it's an oversubscription, which is showing the demand for the company. And then thirdly, it's highlighting that it's a pre-IPO company. And fourth, they're highlighting their blue chip customers. All this is highlighted in a subject line and then also in the first two paragraphs, right? Now also, she does let on to a clue as to the business model as to why they've got interest in that, letting them sell goods without having to stock them, right? So effectively, this model, what it's really sort of communicating is that there's an exponential potential with this model because and it's also highly profitable. So sometimes it's not exactly about what you say, it's also about what you don't say and then what's inferred by what you actually don't say. And that's pretty important. Speaking to the Australian Financial Review, Marketplace co-founder, Executive Chairman Jason White said, taking on the capital from Salesforce was a strategic move by the business. Now that is an important comment because effectively he's communicating that this is a strategic investment from their side and not just a financial investment. Okay, and also he highlights in the next article that they have an extraordinary track record of picking successful tech companies, and it gives Marketplace a huge amount of credibility as we get larger clients on board. So what's nice about the way they're positioning this, and sometimes you need to think about how you position this for your own communications to investors. They're highlighting that, look, we've just had Salesforce come on board, and is our belief that in having Salesforce come on board, it's going to lead us to being able to attract larger customers for our platform, even though we've already got some quite high profile customers already, right? So as I said, it's important for them to be able to communicate that. And there's any Salesforce Commerce Cloud customer globally that wants to sell things they don't own, we can now have a deep strategic partnership with. Okay, and he's highlighting in here down below, it wouldn't be exclusively integrated, right? So that was important to highlight. Now the other part, okay, so going down to this next sort of paragraph here, which I think is really interesting. Now it talks about the executive team. So if you think about all the brand elements that we're highlighting, is literally covering them at the start of this article. The company recently appointed former IBM, right? So once again, this whole job is about unknown to known and is leveraging off brands, right? So IBM is another brand that's going to be connected to. It's already got a positioning and it's got a brand perspective in the marketplace. And head of Watson Customer Engagement. Now, obviously, Watson is very well known from an AI perspective, right? So that also gives a bit of an indication in the article. And then it obviously goes on to a couple more. Now, also, and Watson Customer Engagement for Asia Pacific, okay, which I also think is interesting. So to me, what they're doing is positioning this really well, but as you can see, the communications of all the different capital raising brand elements are highlighted right throughout the article. And then it goes on to talk about the history of the company, right? So that's always a nice way. So whilst it's talking about here's the success of the company, here's what they're achieving right now, it then relates back to, well, the company was only founded in 2016 when childhood friends and co-founders, Jason White and Sam Salter, decided to license the technology underpinning their bike exchange marketplace to other businesses. All right, so really, really good article, and it's talking about, once again, the pre-IPO round, which was led by institutional investors. Once again, this is just a highlighting of all the different investors, the brand name investors. Now, also, this is a great example of bandwagon effect. You can see that it was led by institutional investors, including Endeavour Asset Management, Elliston Capital, and the OC Fund. And so if whoever that lead investor was, so it is highlighted as 3 leads, which I find interesting. But then it's showing all the other investors that typically come on. And you'll notice that given it's a pre-IPO stage, a lot of the investors that are coming on board are typically related to pre-IPO opportunities. So this is an absolute communication to the marketplace about its intention to go to IPO, right? Not just in wording, but also in the investors that have actually coming on board. And then it's got a positioning of its listing and all that sort of stuff. Then what he goes on to talk about is that they're looking to get traction in the US before going to the public later in early 2022. Now, what's interesting about that comment is effectively they're highlighting that what they want to do is getting that traction, right? Effectively, they will see that as a milestone that if they achieve that, there'll be a valuation uplift. Right now, once again, this is not actually said in the article, but from a business positioning standpoint, you can see that that's how they're actually positioning it. And then also talking about how the strategic winning of clients will have a big impact in 2 years and in years 2 and 3 when they've come on board and start to scale, right? So we're focused on that customer acquisition piece. So as I said, this is positioned really well, and then it goes right down to this part, and then it talks about the traction element. So not only is it covered off every single element of this capital raising brand, it is actually finishing with the traction and with the growth of the different marketplace, and it's talking about what they're looking to do. And I said, so you can see that all the different capital raising brand elements are actually highlighted in this art. I think the only thing there's mentioned no awards being won, but every single capital raising brand element we've discussed about how it is you get an investor's attention within seconds is actually outlined in this article, right? And so, as I said, one of the beautiful things about doing these capital raising breakdowns is that it's reinforcing this message. It's reinforcing how every single line is communicating this message to us as founders about really how we need to position our business to the investor ecosystem, right? Now, you may not have the ability to have all these people on board, right now, but at least it's in your head. At least it's in your head for a thinking. From a thinking perspective. And I said, these are the signals to the marketplace, right, that people will get when they actually read this type of article. So I hope that was helpful with its capital raising breakdown session. Look forward to providing more shortly.